What's up, everybody? This is your girl Erica from the Classy Climb blog. Wasn't going to do this today, but had to do it through several conversations. Been kind of slammed earlier today with client calls. I just had to do this title: passive income versus flipping income. And on the backside, we're going to talk about maxed out Americans and spinsters. So it's going to be a little while today, but here's the thing. I was watching a PBS special. Someone had brought it to my attention on Facebook of people being 55, unemployed, hanging on by a thread. And it was horrible, right? Because this woman was highly educated, had a good life. Your first thoughts are, what happened? What happened along the way for her to be in this position, right? Now, I'm not picking on spinsters. I'm not picking on unmarried women. My grandparents always told me, listen, if you're a woman from 20 to 40 and you need to know what's going on, if you're not going to get a husband, then you need to make a plan, right? And I even say that applies to men, because I actually know men at our church and do different circles who are in their 50s, got divorced. They have this big old house and they're just renting all the rooms out so they can afford to live there. So it's not just women, it's also men. Okay. Now, and I'll even make the joke that I know some people who dads, they got divorced from their mom. They went out, lived a life in their 50s, and now their dad got injured or had a stroke. He can't work anymore. He had a car accident, and he's kind of like, hey guys, can I come stay here while I recover from my broken leg? Hey guys, I had this stroke. And the kids are kind of like, dude, you divorced mom. Like, what do you want us to do, man? We're all grown here. Like, take yourself to a old folks home, or take yourself to live somewhere else. And so I think it's people pick kind of on the woman, the spinster woman who has no husband, ha ha ha. Instead of going, there's a lot of older men out there who are also in a condition of, multiple dogs, multiple cats, loneliness, and having a painting company and light construction company. We go to a lot of homes of men who are just single. Can't do it himself, doesn't know how to do it, scared he might fry the house if he touches the electrical stuff. So it's not just women, it's actually men too, on different scales though, because I think, the 50-year-old dude we know that's living in a house, renting the rooms out to 4 other guys because he got the house in divorce is okay with it. Like, it makes him feel kind of hip that he's got these younger guys living there. But I think in the economy, you'll start to see more of that. Why? Because people are maxed out, right? And so there's a post I see that's driving me crazy. And it's a lot of Facebook groups and different groups going, should you charge your adult children rent? And I go, yes, because here's the problem. If you're in a financial situation where, here's 2 sets of parents. There are a set of parents who, if little Bobby or Bicky or whoever, or even Jamal comes out of college and he's like, hey, I found a townhouse in Raleigh. It's $55,000. I only need $1,000. I've got the other $2,000 to close on this house. Those parents have the money, put the money in, boom, you're going on with your future, right? Or, hey, mom and dad, trying to get this car, just need this amount of money for a down payment, done, deal. Or parents even buy the car for college. Those are one set of parents, and there are a lot of them. Don't believe there's a few white people. No, there's a lot of Black and Latino parents who are like, I want this kid to move on with life and have a life outside my house, so I'm willing to donate money to the down payment closing of a small condo or townhouse. Much better option, right? Then there's the other parents who, they can't afford that. So people are like, I'm going to go home with my mom and dad and live there and expect to live rent free. I tell you guys all the time on this channel, I actually know people who lived at home for the past 10 years since we left college. They haven't been contributing. They've kind of just coasted. They haven't really struggled or looked for second jobs or part-time jobs. They just kind of chilled. And honestly, as a man, and some of them are girls, I've seen them and I go, you would be doing so much more and you'd be at different jobs right now if you lived on your own. If you lived independently, you would take that second job. If you lived independently, you would do what it takes so you can date a woman, right? Impress her, date a woman or date a man. You wouldn't be like, well, I'm home with my mom in my sweatpants and I'm only 29. Girl, what are you doing? Why are you and your mom at home watching shows on a Friday night? Do you plan on living with your parents forever? Maybe she is. Maybe she'll be a spinster. Now, let's make sure we define the definition of spinster. It's a woman who's beyond marrying age, which that's in America. I mean, we can go 45. We can have a crazy number if we want to, because there's a lot of people in their 40s getting married. Okay, but we can go 45, right? So, you know, according to my grandparents, it's like, if you know in advance, plan ahead. And we even had an aunt that lived in Philadelphia and she loved it, but she realized, I'm not getting married here, getting older. I'm going to be closer to family. Simple as that. You know, we've had historically people who have lived closer to family, to be closer to the family unit, which is extended family, grandparents, whatever. Or we know a lot of women who live with their moms when they're in their mom's 70, daughter's 50. You know, it just is what it is. I think somewhere in that conundrum, people have assumed the kids will take care of me. If I don't have kids, I'll have to kind of move closer to extended family, right? So I just wanted to cover that because I've seen that a bajillion times. And people are like, Spinsters, haha, unmarried women, it's your fault for not picking some Dusty Jerome. And I'm like, you know, if she picked a husband and he didn't work, I mean, they'd still be poor. They'd just be two of them together, right? So, I mean, it's like, it's a catch-22 either way. But, you know, make a plan either way. And I think some people are in their 40s thinking they're going to make, I mean, they're at peak money. I mean, I know people who are working for some of the tech companies here in Austin and they're making great money. But if you ask them, hey, is your car paid off? Is your student loans paid off? Is this paid off? They still got student loans in their 40s. They still got car payments. And I'm like, that's a bad look because you're on the backside of the 40s. And if they let you go, now you got to go out to the free market. And the free market has to say, okay, this is an older man and an older woman. How many more years are they going to really work for this company? Or are they up to date on the tech software or the capabilities of these different companies? Right? So don't think ageism just hits the women hard. It does. The study did say after 35, it hits them. Because honestly, if you're an employer, I've been on many interviews where they go, do you have kids? You know, I've got a couple kids. And knowing that's an illegal question, but they still answer it, ask it every freaking time. Every freaking time they still ask it, right? So Miss Soho is 45 beyond married. No, it's not. I'm just saying, for example, we're just giving it for an example, right? We could say 62. Whatever you want to say the number is. I'm just saying, as far as people making a plan, a financial plan for their life, like to say, oh, somebody's a spinster because they're not married and they're like 29. That's silly, right? So we're just throwing out a number just so it can have a number. But let's make it 62. Whatever. Let's make it 60, right? They're getting ready to get their Social Security. They ain't married nobody. They ain't found nobody. Whatever, right? Whatever number feels good to y'all. Because there's a lot of very active 40s and mid-40s folks. But the reason I felt like that video was so important to this conversation we're trying to have about passive income or flipping income is because she's a smart woman. She's had great high-profile jobs, very accomplished, and is unemployed. And is having to keep refinancing her house so that she can live. What if she didn't have a house? And then she was relying on an older gentleman. I don't know their arrangement. I really don't even want to know after seeing him. And he was helping her with her mortgage. Like, what if that man wasn't around? What would be her next level? And I think she's renting out a room in the actual video. So that was part of her plan. So I'm going to go and look at some of your comments here. But the 4 points I want to talk about is debt, dude. The debt that people have. If you're in your 40s and you see the highest number of people getting laid off is 45 to 52, I think it's 52 or 53, like really high statistics. And I think it's just companies laying off who's the most well paid. You know, if they can pay somebody 30 or 20 right out of college, way less than you, and you guys have the same skill, it might happen, right? So we have to be prepared for that. But I'm talking about debt. You look at a lot of people in their mid 40s and 50s, they're paying for a kid to go to college, and then they might be having to take care of an elderly parent. They're on the catch-22. So that's why we talked about maxed out Americans. But you got to make a plan, right? And if I ask some people right now, could you guys retire in 5 years? Is there anybody in the comments, anybody watching the show right now who could retire in 5 years? And I really mean it. I mean, retire, live well, enjoy themselves, you know, not have to downsize your house, not have to sell all your clothes in 5 years. And I mean it. So if there's anybody in comments, hey, put it in there. Let me know. Let's see. Cosmic Wisdom said he saw the PBS segment. It's very popular. Alan Hodder, yes, there are cat men and cat women. Listen, I go to Zilker Park over here, Town Lake, and I promise you, there are multiple men every day of the week with like 3 dogs, walking 3 dogs. And, you know, my older male friend jokes, he's like, listen, if you're willing to pick up 3 dogs as crap just go get a woman. And I don't know, you know, I mean, he's just saying it as a joke, but he's like, you got 3 dogs, dude. Or there's a comic that has this woman talking about, she's looking, she don't know where her husband was. Her husband was on the floor, and it was like 4 dogs in the bed. It was crazy. So people and pets are big signs, I think. If you start seeing people with multiple pets, yeah, they can love pets. That's great. But there also is signs of like, well, if you got 4 dogs, who else lives in your house with you? A husband and children? Who all lives there with 4 dogs? So inside. Bachelorette and Spinster Nation. You know, yeah, I think it's a lot more single older guys who, you know, my friend works in Dale, and I have several friends who work at Dale and several friends who work at other tech companies. I'm trying not to use too many company names, but they literally say, I mean, one of my friends is 41, and he's just got married like 2 years ago. And he says part of the reason he got married is if he would go to work and he was surrounded by a bunch of 40-year-old guys who were single and angry. And he said, oh my God, am I like that? And we were all like, yeah, you're like that, dude. You're really damn grumpy. So he just started actively dating and got married. He was like, when he looked around, he was like, these guys have waited too late. Now, maybe people say, well, marriage ain't for them, or they don't know. I don't think we're meant to be alone necessarily. Everybody's different. I don't think everybody's cut out for marriage, but I think a lot of people have bought into this hype of, I'm a bachelor. Look at my cool house and my cool car all by my damn self, choking on almonds by himself or something. You know what I mean? Who knows? But I think he's a prime example of why I talk about this, because he was saying a lot of these guys are really grumpy and like, and he couldn't understand why. He's like, dude, you're living the life. You're single. You got a car. You got a life. And I just don't think some of the hype that was put into Gen Xers is true. So about being singles. Okay. Yes. Something your adult children should pay rent. No question. You stay with family, work as a unit. Yeah. And that's the key here. I think a lot of people who are complaining that, you know, this has just been a big topic over and over, all over Facebook about kids having to pay rent. And I go, if they lived anywhere else, they would. I remember one of our friends was living at home and he was loving it. He'd go out every night. He had money, and his parents were like, yeah, it's time for you to add about $400. I think it was like $300. It's like 4 years ago, like $300. He was like, $300. He literally moved out, you guys, over $300. $300. I remember one time my nephew was staying at one of my cousin's apartment. And he was like, dude, you need to wash dishes. And he left. And he hadn't even got his new apartment left. He was just so mad. He was like, how dare you ask me to wash dishes? I mean, it's like these people, and that's why I say I think it's a silly question, because it's like, are you an adult? Your feelings might get hurt. You can wash dishes. You can pay a little money. And also it should incentivize you to work another job. It's a comfort / growth thing, right? A lot of these people who I'm seeing who are living at home till like late 30s, their friends are already married with 5-year-old kids, dude. Now, everybody's path is different. Everybody's journey is different, but 9 times out of 10, they're starting way later in life. Desiree said, hello, Marilyn. Okay, Alvin Holler, life has to put that squeeze on people no matter how they try to escape. Interesting. Miss Solo. So 45 is beyond Marilyn. We already tackled that. So Miss Solo, I hope you're not offended. Alvin Hollander, better learn how to handle and grow money or barter. Resourceful people will be all right. Cosmic Wisdom, LOL, Erica. Okay. Let's see. Alvin Howard, marriage is no guarantee that for everyone who desires it. Strong cultural and societal dynamics at play. You give your shot and perhaps it happens. So here's the thing, and I'm not saying this in a smart-ass way. I think if you want something, you will get it. Now here's let me lay it up appropriately as I talk about planning. There are 3 men at our church. It's a pretty big church. It's kind of like not a mega church, but it's a big church, who got foreign brides. Now people are like, oh, you got that girl from Ukraine? You went through a marriaging process? What in the world? That's crazy. And I've actually congratulated them. I think it's a great idea that these guys that are a little bit awkward, they work for Dale, they're nice guys, they're engineers, nothing too weird about them. They just had a hard time dating women, and they're in their later 40s. They got a wife. Now, marriage is not a guarantee of like happiness and all stuff, but back in the day, let's be really honest, it's only been the past 50 years that we've turned marriage into this love fest. I mean, in 1920s, if you had a bunch of daughters and the guy down the street just got himself a new house and a farm and he wanted to marry your daughter, you let him marry her. You know, it was more business than people think. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, when you see the divorce rates of people, which let's correct one of them. if you have a day, even a day worth of associate's level of college, the numbers of people who have college degrees and who have associate degrees and who have any certification, marriage is one, divorce is 1 in 20, is 25%, right? So it's 1 in 4. Marriage divorce rates for everybody else who are just regular old Joes coming out of high school is 50%. So let's dispel that. We love putting that lie out there. It's 50%, and that's just inaccurate information. It's been proven over and over that, you know, a lot of people who are going to associate degrees or community colleges or getting certificates or are in the Army, work different things, workforce in different capacities, have less divorce rates. Why? Because now Army has high divorce rates, but we mean vocational training, basically. We're talking about vocational training, have lower divorce rates because the timing. A lot of these people are getting married later. If you tell me Bobby and Joey got married at 18 and they got divorced at 21, I'd be like, all right, that makes sense. Maybe they just grew up and they grew out of each other's, you know, surroundings. That happens often. So let's kill that right there. But I think as far as when it comes to marriage and it comes to income, I think when people are 25 and they both are broke and they want to live together, I think that's what you're seeing with cohabitation. We have a lot of people cohabitating that if this was the 1980s, they'd get married, right? Because they're both broke. It's like, you're both broke. What do you got to lose, right? It's not just a love contract. It's also a business contract. That's why the divorces you do see, their complaint is marriage. Their complaints were money. Why were their complaint money? Because they couldn't work that out. So Erica's a breathing stat machine, hashtag Rain Woman. Watch yourself. Rain Man was a little bit special. The stats are important because I think when we get in these conversations on Facebook and YouTube, people are so emotional. They're so upset. And I go, well, the numbers say this. Now, you may say whatever you want about statistics. People are bending them to fit people's whatever. I get you. But at the end of the day, they do give some marking and measurement to conversations that are more logical than this, I'm emotional and marriage sucks. Like the other day, somebody was like, the church is dying. And every week there's mega churches popping up everywhere, catering to more smaller families and youths and millennials. And so it's just a perspective. It's an emotional thing, not an actual number thing. Alvin Hodger said 5 years, I'm real close. All right, Alvin, define that, right? So I always tell people, if somebody says, you know, I really do ask them, I say, 5 years, what happens in 5 years? What if something happens? What if you have a stroke? What if you break your leg? What if you can't work? All kind of stuff. Cosmic Wisdom, I can't, trying to do it in 10 years. That's good. Listen, 10-year goals are more realistic, right? So if I say, hey, you're 30 now and you're 40, when you're 40, what would you like your life to look like? And you write me out all these different ideals. Well, that means each year you have a way to work towards that, right? If you say by, 40, I want to have 2 rental properties. Well, you could start at 35 and buy 2, but then it's a 10-year plan gives you much more grace period to do it incrementally. So Solo, I'm late. Is this the PBS on YouTube? You can see the PBS. It's called Alvin. See if Alvin could put the link in there or anybody who could put the link in there for her. I'll put the link in the comments after this renders. But essentially it was talking about Americans who, it was this particular one woman. She was a black woman. She looked younger than she was. She was 61, but she was in this beautiful condo, townhouse, and it had great art and it looked nice and she was dressed nice to the gills and she was absolutely freaking broke. Her house was refinanced to the mortgage, to the hills. She had left a very high profile job and did World Bank and then went and started a bunch of painting art museums or something like that. Small painting, galleries. The key here in her story, which I think is sad, is I think she could have kept her job. I think she should have found somebody to help manage the place. And when it went under, and she still worked her job. A lot of people get that whole, I'm going to quit my job kind of attitude. And I'm like, well, you ain't got no money. Why are you quitting your job? Or drawing from their retirement. Like I have friends who tell me all the time, boastfully, like they're engineers, I have $1 million in my 401k. Well, what if the stock market crashed in half tomorrow? What you going to do? Right? And so it's like this conversation of like, I'm a very big believer in hard assets, and that could be guns, that could be silver, gold, that could be things that you could sell out of your house tomorrow, all kind of items, rental properties. I'm just a big believer in hard assets. Paper assets are beautiful. We start where we start, but hard assets are the win. So that pet collection is showing hoarding tendencies. Yeah, I think there is a definition for when people are hoarding pets, but it's just always a joke. When we were at Town Lake, it's a very big lake here. It's a very big trail here. And it's Zilker Park. You can look it up. You guys can Google it. I'm here in Austin, Texas. And it's like, 200 acres. And it's got this trail that goes all over the place. But you will literally see men with 3 dogs. You'll see women with 3 and 4 dogs. You'll see people with all these dogs, and you see their car, and you're like, how are you getting all these dogs in there? I mean, it's just an interesting conversation. And 9 times out of 10 you meet them, they're either pet walking, which is cool. They're walking pets for pay, or 2, they actually do own all the pets. And my friend used to make a joke. He's like, if you see a man with 2 dogs, he's ready, girl. You can marry him tomorrow. Go get him, right? And I'd laugh because I go, well, who wants to prey on people if they're lonely? That's not right. But he used to make that joke. Anyway, all right. Ascal, A.K. Scal, sorry. If everything goes well and I keep my job and buy 10 at $400 a month after expenses, property or no properties, then yes. Yeah, you can do it. I mean, you really can, honestly. I tell people, it's what is your freedom number? And now freedom number, I talk about this a lot of time with my consulting clients, like what is the amount of money you need tomorrow to stop working, right? And a lot of people don't know it. And so I really challenge y'all to grab a piece of paper right now and what are your things, right? If your car was paid off, all you had left was maybe your mortgage and your bills, what would they be? Right? Because some people still have student loans. People have credit cards that are out of control. And I mean, you can literally go these things smallest to largest. Now, everybody's like, well, Dave Ramsey, I don't like Dave Ramsey plan because this one has a high interest. Stop that crying, okay? Just smallest to largest, because 9 times out of 10 when people call me and they've got 12 or 15 credit cards, they'll read off the amount, and I go, honey, that's $200. That's $500. Just pay the smallest ones first. And then you look up, and instead of having 15 credit cards, you got 12. So I think people, Alvin Hollers are single doesn't mean lonely. Of course not. It does not mean that. But what in the context of this show, what we're talking about is planning. Like, what is your plan? You know, if you fall and break your ankle, like a prime example, we have a young guy at our church. He's 31 and he broke his arm and his ankle. I can't remember if he fell off his motorcycle. Yeah, he fell off his motorcycle, broke his arm and his ankle, and he had to call his parents to come down to help him for a couple of days because he was like, oh my God, I realized there's like nobody to help me. Like my friends can come visit after they get off of work, but I don't have anybody to help me. So it's not about being lonely. It's just necessarily saying, do these people have a game plan? All right. This is what happens when you raise a generation to just be happy, just to have participation trophies. Yeah. Cosmic Wisdom, Miss Solo, just go on YouTube and type PBS faking it and you will see the clip. Thank you, PBS faking it. And she even wrote a book, right? Like the lady's not stupid. Like she used to be a consultant. I feel like she could do that again, but she's in that 61-year-old range. And I think she just wants passive income. And so we're going to go, I'm going to talk to that. I'm going to talk to that in like 2 seconds. I'm sorry. We've got along on this. When is the next U.S. Census? I don't know, but I remember them doing, PBS did a thing about the census, how they were so worried about all these unmarried African-American women. They're like, oh my God, the horror. And then they looked up and they're like, oh, a bunch of them, you know, did a half-year census, a mini census. And it was like 5 years in, they're like, oh, a bunch of them got married, but they got married 33 to 35. And, you know, white women usually get married 25 to 27, right? So the census is very informative, but I think it's off. Now, what's getting ready to happen? I know they're getting ready to hire the biggest number of census employees ever. I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen, and people are going to call me crazy, but I think they're going to, you know, they've been saying this 11 million illegals. I live in Texas. I promise you. That number is probably closer to 30 million because half the people I meet here are like, we came out of California. And I'm like, legally? No. So, I mean, I think that number's probably been 30 million for a while. And even in North Carolina, I'm from North Carolina, and we had whole towns where, you know, if the police came and knocked on the door, you had 20 people living on a property, you know, multiple houses, just all kind of stuff. Migrant workers. I think you're going to see about 30 million their increase on the illegal number. I think, honestly, African-American and Native American Indians, like the last census proved 28% increase in Hispanics, 4% increase in Asian Americans. Because you have to realize we have a lot of Chinatowns, a lot of Koreatowns. If you go to Houston, I remember one time being on a flight to Houston and more than half the plane was all Korean. Or now more Koreans and more Asians have actual, you know, people coming in. A lot of Chinese citizens are buying up along the West Coast. 80% of all the homes bought in Vancouver were Chinese. So I think you're going to see huge numbers of that. So the last census proved we had 20% increase on Hispanics, 24% increase on Asians, 9% increase in African Americans, and like an 8% increase in Indians, and like a 2% increase in white people, right? So you know, even just those stats alone, I mean, there are a lot of, I think there are going to be some surprise numbers. So I'm going to leave it alone. But there's going to be some surprise numbers. I think you're going to have some groups who are going to be like, yeah, it was a couple million more than we said last time. And I think they're going to say, whoops, you know, America's really changing. And we thought this was going to be 20 years down the road, but really it's now kind of conversations. So let's see. Cosmo, yeah, she should have kept her job. Oh, number one, like I'll tell you right now, I worked at Lowe's and there was a guy in there. He flipped 3 houses. And he was still working at Lowe's, and people were like, when you gonna leave? When you gonna leave? I know you do this stuff on the side, like giving him all this grief. And by the time he actually did leave, and this guy was like, got out of the military, retired military, and then he was working at Lowe's. By the time he did leave, he had 6 rentals. How many houses did he flip? I think he was flipping 4 at the time, but he had 6 rentals. So he was good. Like he was beyond good, plus his pension. And so I think when people are trying to rush you, or they have these thoughts of like, to be a real boss, I have to be there 140% of the time. That's just not true. So Corey Eden, keep motivating, sister. Thanks. And Andre Hatchett, everybody please like this video. Thank you, Andre. Miss Stella, she's awesome, very knowledgeable. Thank you. I try to bring it with numbers and facts, not just emotion, because we can all get emotional about some of this stuff here. Cosmic Wisdom, I know my monthly number. I want to pay off my mortgage and get passive income leasing land or buying rentals. But knowing your freedom number means knowing your monthly expenditures. Hit that like button. Dude, I'm really, really serious, you guys. I talk to people every day of the week, and 9 times out of 10, if I ask them, what dollar do you have in every single bank account right now? And what are your expenses and what's coming out tomorrow? Like half of them couldn't tell me. And I have a calendar book, and I like money coming in, money coming out. It's a P&L every day, folks. So let me hit you to the passive income and the flipping income, because we've been spending our time in Spinster land, and that was kind of funny. So thank you guys for participating on that. But so I want to give an example of one of the stocks, and let me see if it'll let me share my page. I don't think it will, because my computer's been kind of cutting a fool lately. So let me see. If I can't, then I'll just get the information off this my phone over here. Hold on a second. I apologize for the wait. But we're going to talk about a stock, just one, not a bunch, just one, and give people an example of when they talk about, let's see here, portfolio. All right. Let's see if I can find it. All right, so we're going to talk about WSR. Anybody who's in stocks or real estate, we're going to talk about WSR, and that is Whitestone, REIT. Today they're a little down. It's $12.21. All right, and it's about 9% dividend returns. All right, so just for example, and we're going to do solid numbers. If you guys want to keep up, grab that piece of paper, because you're going to feel it. We're going to do it. All right, so Whitestone, REIT. $12. We're just going to do a solid number. And, you know, if you get it for $12 at the end of the year, you'll probably end up getting $1, right? 9%, we're just rounding off here. So every month you're going to get 9 cents, right? As a monthly dividend share. That's just $12. Now, if you guys have bought the course, Financial Freedom Starts at the Basement, you've already heard me talk about, you know, separating the money and putting money away in letters and stacking it in ladder income. So let's say you're already following the plan. You put 25 away a week. But you really want to get your foot in the door when it comes to stocks. So you say, I'm going to buy 2 shares every week until of Whitestone. Just because you want to. We're just going to do a sample here. Put that money in. Well, that means at the end of the year, you're going to get $2. Let's just say you do it 1 week. You're going to have $2 and $24 worth of shares. And you're going to get 18 cents every month. That's not really shiny. Many people aren't excited about that. Let's go down to, say you get 10 shares, right? That's $120 invested. You get $10 at the end of the year, 90 cents every month. Let's say you get 100 shares, because we're still on our $25 a week. We're not breaking our budget. We're just putting money away every single week so we can acquire. But let's say we have a little bit more money and we want to put it away. Say we get 100 shares. 100 shares of this Whitestone REIT. Well, then we're going to have $1,200 invested into this company, right? And we're going to get $100 at the new year. So every month we're getting about $9 or so in dividend income. So we're like $9 passive income, baby, right? Well, let's say we're feeling like we get our tax refund check and we say, bump it. We're going to start off wow. And we buy 1,000 shares. Like, let's say we've been buying all year long and then tax refund times we come and throw a big lump sum. And let's just say we had 1,000 shares. 1,000 shares is going to be $12,000. And so at the end of the year, you're going to have $1,000 return. So every month you're going to have about $90 coming in. Do you hear those numbers? Now, when we just talked about on the other channel about buying, let's say $100,000 house, and it's going to be around that 6% down payment and closing costs, that's $6,000, $6 to $7 grand. And so when people look at those numbers, they go, well, I don't have 12 grand and I don't have 6 grand. But we're not saying you should invest that much at the beginning, just small chunks at a time. Whether it's $25 a week, whether it's $100 a month, however you want to look at that, or $50 a week, it's small investments over time. That's why it's called passive income. It's not fast, it's not fancy, it's not super sexy. It's small increments over time. So when we talk about people with 401k and the matching, 6%, 10%, putting that money in every paycheck over time. So when you see a lot of these videos and they're all like, yeah, I got all this passive income, I'm raking it in, they're actually talking about an more level of activity, right? Because they're talking about they have a business and people are buying books or buying ebooks or buying different products and services. That's a little bit more active than it is passive. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, everybody? I hope you can follow. If you have any questions, put in the thing. Jay Madison, Erica, hey, I took your advice. 2,500 invested and looking to put more in other investment clubs. Good job, dude. I mean, again, we could talk about Tulsa Real Estate Fund. We could talk about Todd Capital. All these people you have monthly investments from anywhere from $25 to $50 to $100 a month. Now they do have options for $1,000 a month, but that's up to you, right? That's wherever you are. And if I'm not mistaken, the Todd Capital Group has about 140 investors so far. The Tulsa Real Estate Fund, I don't know the exact amounts, but it's coming along. So the whole difference in that is we were like, oh, passive income. But they're talking about more active opportunities and situations. So we talk about flipping income. So many people come on the channel and go, I've got $1,000. What can I do? Well, I would tell you if you got $1,000, I'd tell you to put away and save it, right? I'd tell you to invest it because it depends on your long-term plan. Could you start something small? Could you start a lawn care business? Could you start a service business where you're taking that money to get mostly your LLC in a business bank account? Sure. But as far as flipping huge amounts, which I think people have this dream of going from $1,000 to $200,000, that is not necessarily true, right? We could spend $1,000 on a course or a certification that help us make more money, but as far as flipping these big numbers, that's just not exactly true, right? So I see what you're saying, Alvin. Alvin Holger says the core plan of what you do with primary income matters. Yes, because 90% of people, I'd even say 99% of people are going to work a job and it's over the long term, right? So I remember this guy fussing saying, I've never made over $50,000 in the past 10 years. And I go, well, look at the bright side. Over 10 years, you made $500,000. And if you say it in that way and just that little bit of a flip of, people who are making 80 grand a year in 10 years, they've made $800,000, right? Now you're going to say, Erica, taxes and this stuff come out and all this other stuff. That is true. But in the grand scheme of things, when people say, I don't make any money, I don't have any money, that's also false because you've made money over the course of your lifetime. And it's not what you make, it's what you keep. Because we just saw what Money Mayweather, he's getting paid $100 million for this fight. And he's asking the IRS to give him a break on $1 million. This guy's made $200 million over his career. Invested in different real estate ventures. Don't know that for certain. You could go do research on it, but it's not the money you make, it's the money you keep. It's the money that you divert to the side. So, all right. Alvin Hollinger, well, Cosmic Living said, amen, Alvin. Alvin, that's very true. Alvin Hollinger said, how to not get caught up in sharp downturn in a market. That is where you lose your shirt. How do you manage the risk of flipping in a hot market? Well, there's people, we could go on a whole tangent on that, Alvin, but the key is people who are consistently, let's say we call it rehabbing. We say they got some rentals and they got some flips, depending on what they're doing with their business. They can make money in any market. right? So I have friends here. JR mentioned the company I always talk about. He couldn't really make deals work in Austin for a while. So he would go to the edges of the city, go to past Georgetown, past Taylor. He'd go East Austin, Mueller, he'd go all these places that are basically on the edges of town, but still qualified for this area. And then there'd be other flippers who go all the way to San Antonio, which is sometimes an hour and 20 minutes, depending on traffic. Or they would go to Dallas, because a person who has sound business fundamentals can still make money. It just may not be in their exact backyard market. Right? Because it's kind of a game of we joke it's kind of a game of chairs, right? Because if the guy is working on 4 rehabs and all 4 take too long, they go over budget, something's wrong with the plans, he's not getting them sold at the time he wants, well, he's going to have some cash flow management issues, right? So I would say, how do you manage risk in hot markets? It's just not be all in on one market. I mean, if you look at the last apartment investing seminar I went to in Dallas, literally half the group were super heavy in Oklahoma City and super heavy in Houston, Texas. And they immediately had got out of those markets, not necessarily sold any of their properties, but just started looking for better deals in other markets, because they, if you look at the number of new apartments built here in Austin, new apartments built in Houston, at some point, there's going to be a pain point and those prices have to lower, right? Did you have any other questions? I'm looking over the list of questions right now, and I'm saying if you guys have any more questions, throw them in there. But the key here is the whole passive thing, bits at a time. Flipping, you need a bigger stack. Greg Cardone, he has people come to him and say, I've got 10 grand, I want to invest in your apartment complexes. And he goes, yeah, call me when you get to 100 grand. Or, call me when you put a little bit more away. And so I think what we think of as flipping may work in some smaller communities, may work in like Greensboro, North Carolina, where some of the properties are 30,000, 40,000. You guys saw me talk about Blake Bohem. He specializes in these $30,000 houses. Lisa Phillips, another lady, very popular. She got a lot of flack on Bigger Pockets for, flipping income in $30,000 house range. But again, if you're going to be in that range, it's going to require a lot of attention. You're going to have to pretty much be the on-site contractor. You have to call the plumbing and the electrician, and getting those things done that maybe on a higher level flip would be a little bit easier. This one is going to take a lot of your attention because you're watching your budget so closely on a low, smaller income house. So, all right. REITs pay very, very little per month for $5,000. Is it worth it? That's the key. It depends on which investing company you're in. So I have overcome, I see your tagline. There's over 50 different real estate crowdfunding real estate invested sites, right? So you're talking about Fundrise, you're talking about countless names. But you see the marketing, because sometimes if you put in 1,000 or 500, you're getting an actual 12% return, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not, let's say you have 5 grand. What is it worth to you? Do you have a property you can invest it into? Do you have a duplex you can invest it into? Do you have a fourplex? Do you have a property that you think you're going to get bigger returns on? Then take your money and do so. But a lot of times people aren't that far ahead into the plan, right? They don't have a deal set up right then and there. And that's kind of where turnkey companies come in, wholesalers. And if you're on those lists of investors, email investors, then you could have more options at your disposal. Cosmic Wisdom, yeah, I'm in saving mode now. Clearing up some debt to get my credit score as high as possible. Watching your videos keeps me on my 1 to 2 year goals. Thank you, Cosmic Wisdom. I appreciate that. Alvin Hollander, yeah, 50 to 100K for solid syndication position. If you get it on a small unit deals, maybe 20 to 40. I have overcome. Yes, I prefer multifamily over REIT. Well, yeah, so that's your goals, right? Because let's say you're putting money away in your 401k, you're putting money away in monthly dividend stock, you're putting money away in bank certificates. You're just stacking it up till you get to a position where you can do something bigger. Really the key. So I didn't want this one to go too far over, but we have already gone our gambit of topics. We went from Spinsters, in debt Americans, maxed out Americans. You have to have a retirement plan for sure. And we also talked about passive income versus flipping income, and how it is a system. It's technically a ladder system. You're putting your money away till you can do bigger things. And honestly, some people, what if they never do the bigger thing? What if they never find a property they want to invest in? Well, putting money away just adds to that cushion to their life, right? because we see a lot of people on GoFundMe. I've fallen, I've gotten a car accident, I have medical bills ate up all my savings. And so I'd much rather people be on the side of caution of putting 10 to 30% away a month, which sounds like a lot, but it depends on your expenses. Depends on your car. You know, you got a new car you put money into. The average American's new car payment's is around $500 a month. You know, then you're talking about insurance, where it's like $200 for insurance, depending on who you are, your driving record, that plus money for gas, also maintenance. You're going kind of high up there for a new car. So that money could be better used inside your family for saving purposes or investing purposes. So anyway, you guys, this is Erica wrapping this one up for today. You already know, leave your questions in the after this video renders, and we'll get to them. If you're looking for a consult, hit the links below. Again, if you're looking for any of the courses, they are also in the links below. You guys, thank you for coming in on the late video. Guys, have a great night.